A very warm welcome to all. I'm Rohan Sawant, working as a District Coordination Officer in Sindhudurg, Maharashtra, with the UNDP GCF project titled Enhancing Climate Resilience of India's Coastal Communities. Today, I will be taking you through the amazing world of mangroves to know more about their existence, distribution, uses, and importance in the context of climate change. So let us build our understanding on this significance of mangroves in the context of climate change. Introduction. The word mangrove derives its origin from the Spanish word mangle, the Portuguese word mango, and the Malayan word mangi mangi. These are a type of unique forest ecosystems which occur along tropical and subtropical intertidal regions, creeks, bays, lagoons, estuaries. They are known to thrive well in areas with rainfall ranging between 1000 to 3000 millimeters and temperatures between 26 to 35 degrees centigrade. Salient features of mangroves include their ability and adaptability to low oxygen and muddy anaerobic soils, high saline waters, and capability to withstand strong winds. Mangroves show viviparous form of reproduction, meaning their propagules are born on parent trees before being dispersed through the waters. Notice the mangrove flowers, seed, and roots in these pictures. These roots are called pneumatophores or breathing roots, which grow against gravity, which is aerially upwards, to thrive in the low oxygen deprived soils. Listed here are a few common mangrove species in the Indian context. Avicennia marina, Rhizophora mucronata, Sonoraceae alba, Exocaria agalosa, Brugueria cylindrica, Heritera littoralis, Phoenix paludosa, and Cereops tagal. These are just a few to mention, but there's a long list to go. Let's talk about distribution. Now let us know about the distribution of mangroves globally. About 123 countries show presence of mangroves, 42% of which is found in Asia alone. Indonesia having recorded the highest mangrove cover so far. About 80 species are found in the world. India being the third richest in species diversity with 48 species of mangroves, 40 on the east coast, 27 on the west coast, and 38 in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Mangroves are spread over an area of 4,992 square kilometers. The table below shows the state-wise mangrove cover in India. And guess what? We have the largest mangrove forest and delta in the world, which is called Sundarbans. I'm sure most of you have known about it, or few of you must have also visited the place. That's in West Bengal. And this has been given the status of a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. It is also a Ramsar site, a Ramsar wetland site to mark its importance. Mangroves and wildlife. Wildlife loves the mangroves, or you can say the other way around, mangroves love wildlife. It can go either ways. Right from the microscopic species to the fascinating mammals like the Royal Bengal tiger, the gangetic dolphins, mangrove ecosystems have them all. As you can see how beautifully these species have adapted themselves in the world of mangroves. I would like to draw your attention to these pictures here, which are taken from mangroves spread across the Indian subcontinent. So mangroves are home to many sea creatures, as I said, the fish, bivalves, crustaceans, algae, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, birds, and many invertebrate and microbial species. The green sea turtles are known to take shelter in the mangroves. Mammals like the Royal Bengal tiger, the gangetic dolphins, otters, monkeys, bats, it's an endless list beyond. Let's talk about the benefits of mangroves to humans. Mangroves are a treasure land, not just for the wildlife, but for we humans too. Let us look at the uses of mangroves. The first is capture fisheries, which is nothing but fishing and the fishermen who are involved in fishing related activities. So capture fisheries of crustaceans, bivalves, estuarine fish species, The wild catch of many oceanic fish species, which is the open sea fishing, it largely depends on the juveniles which come to which are known to survive in the mangrove areas. So the adults of many oceanic fish species, they are known to come to the mangrove areas and they use them as nursery grounds. So therefore, the mangroves are also known as nursery grounds of the seas. Wood products like timber, poles, firewood, charcoal, and tannins are extracted from mangroves. Non-timber produce like honey, fish, fodder, medicines, and fruits are extracted from the mangrove ecosystem. Mangroves and this overall ecosystem is largely used and has been becoming popular as a mangrove ecotourism destination. Protection to the shore and the overall coastal community staying there, this is a boon in its own. From the cyclones, tsunamis, or even the strong winds that usually are known to batter the coastline. Many of us by now have known about the deleterious effects and the aftermath of tsunamis and cyclones which threaten the coastal populations. I would like to quote a real life experience from Sindhudurg, Maharashtra during the recently happened cyclone called Taukte in the year May 2021, which battered many cities across the west coast of India. So I would like to add that the west coast of India is not known to have many cyclones like the east coast of India, which usually does have it has a higher frequency of cyclones. And over the last couple of years, in my observation, I would like to quote that there are many cyclones. The overall frequency of cyclones has been going up, and that is a alarm. It's an alarming sign for the coastal population staying there. The life post the cyclone, the Tauktae cyclone, I mean, almost came to a standstill with power cutoff extending to a period of about 10 to 15 days at a stretch. Many locals seem to have realized the importance of mangroves and how they act as a natural barrier, they act as a shorekeeper. These photos depict the varied services derived from mangroves by humans like crab and bivalve, that is for bivalve fishing, aquaculture, artisanal or traditional fishing, and ecotourism. Let's look at some of the ecosystem services that mangroves offer. In this pictorial representation, which is beautifully done by IUCN, I would like to highlight few key ideas over here, which are mentioned. The one being the different services which are extracted from the mangrove areas. The first and foremost being wood, which is taken mainly because the density of the mangrove wood is termed to have a higher valued source in terms of timber and fuel. It is providing livelihood to almost 120 million people who are staying near the mangroves. Mangrove ecosystem services, you can see how much or how economically important are these mangrove ecosystem services. In terms of climate regulation, as I've been talking about it, the carbon storage potential of mangroves is almost 3 to 5 times higher than the tropical upland forest. In terms of coastal protection, restoring mangroves for coastal defense, it stands up to about 5 times uh, the, the coastal effective than the grey infrastructure such as breakwater. So this is to do. It acts like a more as a natural defense mechanism, I would call it, as compared to the engineered ones. Then mangroves also help in water filtration. About 2 to 5 hectares of mangroves may treat the effluents of about equivalent to 1 hectare of aquaculture effluent. So, in terms of tourism, there are more than 2,000 odd mangrove related attractions globally, such as boat tours, boardwalks, kayaking, and fishing. In terms of fisheries, more than 3,000 fish species are found in the mangrove ecosystems. Let's now learn about the mangroves and climate change. What is the relevance between them? The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. These global goals were adopted by the UN in 2015 as a universal call to end the poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. From the total 17 SDGs, I have listed out the most relevant SDGs with respect to mangrove ecotourism, human dependency, and their relevance in the context of climate change. The image here shows us the cycle of carbon production, deposition into the atmosphere, and how it is put back into the ecosystem. As you can see, the black circle out here is for the black carbon, which is produced as a cumulative effect of our actions put together. So that combines the industrialized world, the overall carbon that is put across by the mankind through the actions of mankind, I would say. The green, which you can see on the right, the green from the terrestrial ecosystem, and the blue carbon, which is a combined effect of the coastal and the marine biota, combined together, try to bring in a nullifying effect on the carbon stocks from the atmosphere. Coastal ecosystems, such as mangroves, tidal marshes, and seagrass meadows, sequester and store more carbon per unit area than terrestrial forests and are now being recognized for their role in mitigating climate change. In this slide, we shall see the processes involved in trapping or storing or sequestering the atmospheric carbon into the soils and woody biomass of the mangroves. Photosynthesis plays a vital role in the overall process, acting as a carbon sink. In terms of critical storage, as you can see here, 83% of global carbon cycle is circulated through the oceans. Although coastal habitats cover a mere 2% of the total ocean area, but they do account for almost half of the total carbon sequestered in the ocean sediments. Let's now learn about the threats to mangroves. This is a very important aspect which needs attention from each of us. The seemingly vast mangrove ecosystem is greatly threatened by human interferences. Let us look at this pictorial depiction. Unsustainable practices of mankind in these sectors of agriculture, aquaculture, coastal development, and the added effects of pollution have led to an alarming rate of loss of mangroves. The compounded effects of climate change occurring naturally and accelerated because of our actions need immediate attention. To name a few, in terms of logging would mean extraction of wood from the mangroves. It can cause altered species composition, fragmentation, and total clearance of mangrove forests from a given area. In terms of agriculture, conversion of rice paddies responsible for 88% of mangrove loss in Myanmar, to quote an example. In terms of aquaculture, it has caused more than half of the mangrove losses globally, mostly due to shrimp aquaculture or shrimp culture as they call it. In terms of pollution, the mangrove aerial routes through which they obtain oxygen can easily be smothered and clogged by sediment, solid waste, and oil. In terms of mangrove loss, I would like to say that there is 35% between 1980 to 2000, the equivalent loss or the equivalent of losing almost 150,000 annually and 4 times higher than the overall global forest loss. In terms of climate change, air temperature and rainfall regimes influence global mangrove distribution, abrupt changes in sea level as a primary cause of local and regional extinctions. In terms of coastal development, urbanization drives mangrove losses and degradation. Human population density in coastal regions, which is 3 times higher than the global average. Effects of climate change on Indian mangroves. India's coastline of approximately 7,500 kilometers, with a mangrove cover of a staggering 4,992 square kilometers, faces acute challenges in terms of record rising temperatures, an ever increasing rate of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, rising sea levels, and increase in the frequency of extreme weather events. Mangrove cover along India's coastline has decreased 50% in some areas, largely because of human pressures, including alteration of flow of fresh water from upstream. Sea level rise is predicted to result in further reductions, contributing directly to 10 to 20% of future loss of mangrove cover. Changing climate parameters have led highly vulnerable coastal communities to lose their life and damage to property through flooding, erosion, and saline intrusion. This is expected to intensify as storm surges and sea level rise worsen. Poor coastal communities relying on small scale fishing and farming are more vulnerable to impacts of temperature rise and increasingly erratic monsoons on their livelihoods. The infrastructural investment being made to promote development is also highly vulnerable to climate change impacts, loss, and damage. Let us now look at some of the regulatory provisions in terms of the Indian context. These legal provisions are in place to ensure protection to this unique, productive, and vulnerable ecosystem. The Government of India has set up a National Mangroves Committee dated back in 1976. This is with an agenda to primarily advise the government about conservation and development of mangroves. The next one is the Indian Forest Act 1927. This is an act to consolidate the law relating to forests, the transit of forest produce, and the duty leviable on timber and other forest produce. Next, the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Protection of the country's wild animals, birds, and plant species in order to ensure environmental and ecological security. The Forest Conservation Act of 1980 aims to have an act on to provide the conservation of forests and for matters connected thereto or ancillary thereto. The Environmental Protection Act 1986 is with an objective of providing protection and improvement of the environment. Under this, we have the Wetland Conservation and Management Rules of 2017, which are mainly aiming to work towards regulatory framework strengthening for conservation and management of wetlands in India. The Coastal Regulations Zone 2011. Under this notification reconciles three objectives. The first one being protection of livelihoods of traditional fisherfolk communities, the next one being preservation of coastal ecology, and the third one being promotion of economic activity that have necessarily to be located in coastal regions. The Biological Diversity Act of 2002 focuses on the conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable benefit sharing arising out of the use of biological resources, knowledge, and matters connected thereto or incidental thereto. Respective state specific laws and regulations, as applicable, are present all across the country. I would like to quote an example in terms of Maharashtra. There is something called as a Maharashtra Felling of Trees Regulation Act 1964. So this particular act is to make better provision of regulating the felling of certain trees in the state of Maharashtra. The next one is the Central Sector Scheme on Conservation and Management of Mangroves and Coral Reefs, which is directly under the National Coastal Mission Program. This is with an aim to extend assistance to the coastal states or union territories for implementation of action plans, including survey and demarcation, alteration and supplementary livelihood, protection measures, education and awareness activities. The state government of Maharashtra has come up with a specialized unit for conservation of mangroves, which is called as the Mangrove Cell. It was established back in 2012, and under which a sister organization has developed in 2004, in 2015, I beg your pardon, with the name as Mangrove and Marine Biodiversity Conservation Foundation of Maharashtra. This is having a primary agenda of mangrove and marine conservation, undertaking research activities and incorporating livelihood programs for the locals. A fun fact for all: July 26th every year is celebrated as an International Day for the Conservation of Mangrove Ecosystem. This has been adopted by the General Conference of UNESCO in 2015 and celebrated each year on the 26th July. This is with an aim to raise awareness of the importance of mangrove ecosystems as a unique, special, and vulnerable ecosystem, and to promote solutions for their sustainable management, conservation, and uses. As you can see, this is in the center. You see the photo of mangrove species called Sonoracia alba. This has been declared by the government of Maharashtra as the state mangrove tree. This was done in August 2020, and by far Maharashtra happens to be the only state or the first state to have declared a state mangrove tree. So what needs to be done? Given all this background, where do we stand, or what can we do? Baseline research and resource mapping of mangrove areas is very crucial to know more about these fragile ecosystems. Vulnerable assessment vulnerability assessment, and ecosystem based adaptation will help define the course of action in terms of planning, ecosystem restoration, and biodiversity conservation involving locals, students, government officials, departments. Promoting sustainable coastal infrastructure is very important. Increasing climate resilience of coastal communities, which would mean making aware about climate change, promoting climate adaptive livelihoods, reduction in carbon emissions, and promoting use of green technologies, strengthening policy, governance, and implementation level frameworks, capacity building and awareness for government and public. So, as you can see, these aspects are already being addressed by the United Nations with support from the central and state government of India through various projects spread across different regions in India. Many non governmental organizations, educational institutes, private companies are working closely with the locals, involving them for better managing their mangrove resources. Children, you can be a climate warrior too. Participate in ecosystem awareness and protection drives through your school, college, etc. Always remember the responsible actions taken by people who are living inland or who are living in landlocked states where mangroves or the coastline is not present could also have a positive impact or even a negative impact if not dealt with properly. When possible, you could engage yourself in coastal cleanup drives like beach and creek cleanup campaigns. Become a responsible tourist when visiting such fragile ecosystems. Equip yourself with the necessary skills and training, like the scuba diving training and the nature guides, and many more. I would like to add that I have myself gained training as a scuba diver, and this allows me to explore the underwater world as well. So, just a heads up on that. Um, in terms of like further exploration, I would like to also share a few links. These are mainly video links which will attune you further in the context of mangroves and climate change. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of mangroves. Thank you.